Call the meeting to order. First thing is act on the agenda. Need to add. What was I was going to add to that?
We need to add the proposed attorney fees from the
Right.
Vermont League of Cities and Towns about looking over the subdivision, or not subdivision, I'm sorry, the draft zoning regulations
Right.
as they pertain to short-term rentals.
That.
And we need to add Bill Fromberger here to also speak about attorney fees requests. And we need to discuss the possibility of postponing the next meeting so that you could be part of it. You, Chris.
Yes.
Make a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Act on the minutes.
I move that we accept the minutes of May 8th meeting as they are written.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Public comment. We have here to comment.
We just added Joe to the agenda, so he
Right.
won't comment.
Okay.
Okay, no comments.
You're doing a great job.
So we'll got Joe under new business, so why don't we go to that first?
So you want to hear from me
Yes.
now? As I have indicated before, and as I said at the ZBA meeting, I think it behooves us as a town to have legal help on the issue of that application for cannabis cultivation. It is a major undertaking. It is out of character for whatever we have done before. The legal landscape is changing. My recent information is that H270 has been approved by both the House and the Senate and is at on the governor's desk. And what it will do, I think, is make it the cannabis operations part of the farming under the supervision of the agricultural department. And but that's why I say it's the landscape is changing, and what we need to do, and what I'm asking you to do, is to engage our town attorneys to do things, very specific things, to review our zoning ordinance and advise us what conditions we can, in fact, implement in granting the permit, because we will write a permit. And but the issue is what sorts of conditions can we include, and I'd much rather have that from an attorney with some experience in interpreting what state law is, and then to do it myself, as I have been for years. So, and I would also suggest to you that it's not just a consultation of the ZBA with the attorneys. I believe that the select board ought to be part of that, and come from both our respective bodies, because it is going to impact what happens in town. So that's my request. Attorneys, permit the town to consult the attorneys on the issue of what conditions we may or may not include in a permit for that undertaking.
And who are you thinking would write that letter and put the request in place, and what questions would be asked?
I would suggest, and I will volunteer to do this with Jeanette and some of our Gary's here. He has some ideas. I would suggest that we compile a list of what the attorneys need to look at. They need to look at our zoning ordinance. They need to look at the application and make an interpretation of what it is that we can do. And also suggest that we include the minutes of the meeting where everyone was giving an opinion. So, but those are things that we will work out and transmit to the attorneys when we have it all together. It may take a few days or a week. But there's no rush because the pending changes in the legislation, we're still waiting for whether the governor is going to sign it or not, or let it become law without his signature. So that's my request.
I wholeheartedly support your request. I've rarely seen an issue that brought together so many disparate voices in the community as a unified opinion. But I also have a question. Would you also like to request that, like, is the zoning board going to go forward with requesting an environmental review evaluation? And if so, who would pay for that? Is that something that the town would pay for or the applicant?
Again, one of the reasons I want the attorney's opinion is because in our zoning ordinance, we have a wide latitude of things that we can request from the applicant. And the applicant would have to provide it. And that's one of the things in an economic, an environmental impact statement. You may remember that Mr. Sherman volunteered to do that, but he has since sent me a letter saying he is withdrawing that volunteer. Anyway.
Yeah, also, isn't it that the whole idea, Susan, is I think that the attorney is gonna be able to say if the town can, if the zoning board can legally require that.
Exactly right. And this
So
is
we
what
can't,
I'm-
you don't,
this is what I'm asking.
you're asking about, is the town?
I'm jumping.
You're way jumping.
Okay.
Because we don't know that we can require, the zoning board, not we, but the zoning board doesn't know if legally they can require that of him.
And
so.
Is the letter to the lawyer also going to state something or address a question of, if we do this for this one person and require him to do A, B, and C, will we then have to do this for every other property that?
For similar applications, of course.
And what would that similar applications be? Would it be a
Well,
greenhouse, or would it be an actual marijuana grow or cannabis grow? And that's what I'm wondering, will they get specific, are your questions gonna be specific like that?
The dichotomy that we're in is because the state has reserved to itself the ability and the authority to regulate cannabis operations.
Mhm.
And how that impacts the local zoning ordinances and control documents is not unknown at this time. Because, I mean, certainly we haven't had it. I know other towns have had it, and I don't know how they dealt with it. I would like to know from a town's attorney how we Andover deal with it.
So it is specific.
Given our own zoning ordinances, the language that's in there, all of the documents that we have. With all of that that's in existence, what does it mean for us, and how can we deal with it? That's basically what I'm asking.
So the question, so it's specific to
Just
cannabis grow,
to us.
am I
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
Gary has a comment back here.
I just have a, but if you don't
Go
care.
ahead, go ahead.
And just also, when you look at our zoning regulations, then we also have a town plan.
Mhm.
I think we need some clarity on the two documents, because the town plan says, here's what we're going to be as a town.
Yeah.
Yet,
But
yet,
you
that's,
understand that the town plan is a philosophical statement.
right, inspirational, but.
The implementation of that is the zoning ordinance and the subdivision regulations and all of the other documents that control, that have actual teeth in it. So,
And the only thing I was gonna say, Joe, is I think some people look at the town plan and say the two should marry each, or should be in sync, and they take the town plan literally and think
Yeah.
it's legal.
Right, and it may be that the town plan is beautiful, but not always the legal piece of it.
And so based off of the 100 people that were in attendance via Zoom and there, I think we owe it to the residents of Andover to get legal advice, because if we have to issue the permit, I'm sure there'll be a lot of residents that aren't gonna be happy. But legally, this is what is our only thing we can do.
I would like to, I wish I would have known, it would have been put out there, whom were actual residents of Andover that were on the Zoom and at the meeting and were legal residents, as opposed to people that just had opinions that didn't actually have voting power here. And it would have been interesting to have that, it would have been, for me, it would have been nice to have that information. Who is speaking and their interest in the town, as opposed to just their opinion.
but you understand that when we call for a public hearing,
Mhm.
the public is the public, no
Absolutely.
matter where from. Or they could be out of state.
Mhm.
They can have an opinion about what's happening in this town.
Right, and I'm not saying they shouldn't, it would just be nice to have
No, no,
that, to have,
I
to
don't
know
know
who
how
we're
you would
dealing
do
with,
that.
yeah. I don't know, I think that, that when we do the town meeting, list, he's really good at pointing out, well, you know, these are voters and these are people that, and their opinion is very, is important and valid, but it would, for me, it would have just been, I would have liked to have heard that.
Well, for town meeting, it's a different animal, because in town meeting, you actually vote on things.
Mhm.
In a public hearing, you do not vote on anything. You hear what the public has to say. That's the only purpose that you have a public hearing. At the end of which, as what we did, we recessed the public hearing, which means it is still a public hearing, it is still going on, and it may be called back into session at any time to continue and finally make a decision about what we're finally gonna do, after we have information that we require.
Can I ask a question or
Yeah.
maybe make a point also? So isn't it possible, and this should be just something people are aware of, that because the new law specifically addresses outdoor cultivation, and that is the kind of permit that Mr. Sherman has applied for, that there won't even be a permit to consider or write, if I'm understanding what Jason was saying?
I would suggest.
And the attorney might say that,
Yeah, I
I guess that's
understand.
what I'm saying.
I understand what you're
The
saying,
attorney will
but
tell
I
you
would
that, but.
suggest very strongly that we do not strategize about what it is, or we may not, or do not think we should do. That is, I think, something we need to reserve for a meeting with our attorney, at which time we can strategize and find out what it is that we can do, and not talk about, well, maybe we will do this and maybe we'll do that. I think that's not helpful at this point. What we need to do is have information and advice on what we.
Can you clarify, so outdoor cultivation includes hoop houses or greenhouses?
Right.
So indoor cultivation is like a cement block building or
I
something?
don't know what,
Okay.
what the difference is. I do know that outdoor cultivation includes greenhouses because the plants need some protection during part of their growing season. And that's it.
If it's not more than 180 days in the greenhouse, it's considered outside.
Oh, I see, so it's 180. You mean, so some of the life cycle of the plant needs to take place with the plastic removed? Or like,
It can.
it can, but it doesn't have to be?
I would think at this juncture though, honestly, I would think at this juncture, what we really need to do is let the zoning folks talk to an attorney, because here's the
Yeah.
bottom line.
Yeah.
It's great that we had the public hearing, and it's a wonderful, flag to democracy that a million people got to stand up and put their papers and their whatevers. But the bottom line is that it has to be legal, it has to be within the law. And like you're saying, it may be that he ends up getting a permit and that you can put certain regulations on him, but you can't overdo things either, because if he turns around and it's not legal, he can come back and say, you people can't do this to me, this is not legal.
Thank you.
That's all, so,
That's precisely what I'm looking for.
right.
Is
So tonight, we're just
So
saying, should you do this? Yes.
legal advice that says.
I move, rather than making this gentleman talk about this, I move that absolutely the zoning board, that we allocate what they need to go to that attorney and get this squared away.
Yeah, I second it.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you much. And as I said, I will, Gary and I will talk with Jeanette to put together a package that we'll need to send to the attorneys with the questions that we have, the ones that have occurred to us. He may have questions that he will suggest to us, need answers as well.
And will you do this after the 270 is implemented or not?
Well,
Signed or not?
we have a valid application before us.
And you have 54
And
days.
unless it is withdrawn, we will go forward in considering it and determining what, if any, permits are appropriate and what conditions are included.
So you're gonna get on it pretty quickly.
I expect that if Jeanette has time next week, perhaps later on this week, we'll start to get together, and Gary and I will do some thinking ahead of time.
So then my next question is, if the 270 passes, and I know nothing about it except what you just told me, if that passes and it is a mute, then how does that work with this? But that's a valid
please.
question, correct?
Let's
We're
let
gonna
the lawyer
schedule
tell
one of
us
these-
that.
Yeah, the lawyer.
Okay,
Let's
the lawyer may
not
stop this, we don't know what the
strategize.
lawyer's gonna do.
Okay,
Right.
Let's let the lawyer tell us.
Because it's.
my question was more along the lines of a
Yes, I
zoning,
understand.
you know, would
Because
you?
it's detrimental to what we may be able to do in the future. So, thank you again for your approval, and we'll go forward with the, putting together some information for the attorneys to look at. And depending on what his timeline is, we'll schedule a meeting, hopefully including Chris, to talk to him and see what we have and what we can do. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There you go. Okay, onward. Declassification of Old Parmalee Road.
Yes, sir.
Maybe that's piece of right here.
Get me there.
So my question on, it's just the portion, it's not the entire Old Road, it's just the portion that we looked at today.
Yes.
State highway map shows all of anything else that anybody else might think of as Old Parmalee is Gates Road. So we're literally talking about the
The 1 point. I just wanted to
0.07
verify
of a
that.
mile. That's all that the state
I know,
has
I was-
listed as that road.
Okay.
So, after examining the premises and hearing any interested parties, the selectmen judge that the public good, necessity, and convenience of the inhabitants of the municipality require the road be laid, be discontinued or reclassified or declassified. And you decide to discontinue the highway, a discontinuance shall be set forth in writing and with a complete description of the highway. So do you have a complete description of the highway?
I'm sure we do.
So I just need to vote on it.
I would vote that we discontinue the road.
Is that a motion?
I would like to
Yes,
see
it is
it
a motion.
be declassified to a trail to maintain the right of way, as we have in the past. We have not wanted to give up town right of ways in previous discussions, then it would just become a trail.
My feeling is that it's a small piece of property and one person owns it, and why not let them, I mean, not that they even, probably hasn't even sent any letters or anything in, but my thought is if they wanted to put a lean-to up or something, they wouldn't be able to because there's not, because of the right of way. And who would park where? You'd have to park down on Route 11 to access it, or Gates Road, so. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. I don't really.
I would have a better time supporting it if we had a homeowner kind of asking that, but, I mean, could that just be reserved for a future conversation? And in the meantime, it seems like the precedent is to keep it as a town of right of way.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to
Yeah.
me either way. I just feel like piece of property is worthless.
I understand, yeah,
But I guess it doesn't really.
The only thing Charlie was worried about liability for ditching and stuff.
Boat being a trail, he doesn't have to do that, like on the other legal
Yeah.
trails. But if it was to stay a class 3 road, he'd have to do that. That's the way it was explained last time.
And there is some regulations on
Yeah.
class 4s even.
Is there, what would they,
And-
and so if it was a
Exactly.
class 4, would that be considered a trail? So if we declassify it like Richard had mentioned, that it's a trail,
It would just become a legal trail.
A legal
That's all they
trail.
are, correct? They're not.
I think they're technically the same thing, but they're not.
Yeah.
It's like our town trails are ancient trails, which means you can't drive on them.
Yeah.
Or a town trail, you can drive on them.
so what would this be if we declassified it to a trail? Would it be
It would be a legal trail.
a legal trail that
It
you
would not be a
cannot drive
class 4
on?
road. A legal trail, you cannot operate motorized vehicles
With
on.
boundaries, so if the homeowner, but the homeowner hasn't shown up to give an opinion. I'm just thinking of the homeowner, thinking, it's 2 acres, and if they wanted to
Both
do
abutting
something-
landowners received certified letters 15 days ago. I don't have proof that one of them did, but I know one of them did for sure, and I didn't receive any letters or comment, and it sounds like none of you received any kind of feedback.
I understand why you want a trail there, but on the other hand,
I would-
nobody's used it. And
Nobody.
Yeah.
even
I just-
as a class 3 road, nobody's used it in
Yeah.
20 years.
I just thinking about previous things that when we said we didn't want to give up town right of ways that existed already. Some of them have not been used either. That was my only concern. So, as you said, it can go either way for me. There was zero input from anybody one way or the other. So it's
What were you
honestly up to
saying?
I was
the
saying
board
to
because
just,
You
nobody.
moved to what?
my thought was to just,
Relinquish,
Give
is
it
that the
up,
word? I don't know if that's the
yeah.
word you're looking for. I don't,
because I just think of it as a piece of, I
Yeah.
see it as a very small area. No one's gonna park down below because you're on Route 11, you
Right.
can't park on his property.
So are
So you
you,
can't access it. You could access it from Gates Road, but then what are you gonna do? Just walk down to Route 11 and then back up? It doesn't make any sense to do anything with it. or to keep it
Right,
as a
so are you
trail.
making that motion?
I am just giving my opinion, so I don't know what everyone else wants to do.
Are you aware if you leave it as a trail, the landowner sometime wants to bring it up to the state specs and the town has to maintain it?
Oh, I
No,
was not aware of that.
we have the right to refuse it.
We just went through that,
Well, then maybe we should, all the more reason to throw it out.
Make your motion so I can second it. I mean, I'm listening to everyone, but I'm saying the easiest thing is to,
I don't, because I am a resident of that road, I feel like I shouldn't be the one making the motion, the first motion. I feel like it should be up to all of you, because I do have my opinion, but I feel like it should be up to you folks.
Well,
Is that road the border between the two people's property, or does it go
Yes.
smack through?
yes.
correct.
But,
So it's
well,
not like somebody in the middle of
It-
one person's property?
I disagree that it's the border, the road, because I believe Chris owns beyond, I don't think I think the road, Chris owns both sides.
Of Parmalee Road? No, he does not.
No?
He owns up to Parmalee Road and Allison Minor owns from Parmalee Road west. He owns
Oh.
other stuff out and about.
Yep, I know.
Otherwise, there wouldn't be two, this would be a conversation with one property owner. But
It's not up at the
she owns
top,
way out.
it's not up at the top, so she owns the hill?
She owns everything to the left. The gate that's above that is
Yes,
her
right.
access to her property, but her property goes right up to Parmalee Road. So they literally, if the road wasn't there,
The entrance
that's their property
to
line.
Parmalee, right? Am I correct? It's the entrance to Parmalee Road?
All of it is their border between the two right there, just right there.
Maybe we ought to make a town trail.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have an ancient road on my property. I would love to get the town out of it.
Yeah,
That
I
goes
don't
to
know how
nowhere.
I don't know how to say this correctly, so I'm gonna make a motion and I'm not gonna say it correctly. So I move that we just give that up back to those property owners, just give it up. That's my motion.
I'm a little concerned about what Jed said.
No, it's in our town ordinance that somebody has to, they can bring it up to code, but if the town doesn't want it, they don't have to take it. It's not mandatory.
I don't mind voting on it, but I'm gonna abstain because I just feel like I wish, I mean, could we just do this in stages, like declassify it today and then wait and see if we could get some feedback from the owners? Or is that drawing out something that,
It legally has to be declassified today.
Also,
Correct,
we're just
because of
giving
the
it back to
state,
the owners.
we've done all the notifications.
well, I mean, I think lots of us in town would love that if that was the new precedent.
Do we have a second? Second. More discussion?
What is what are you two? We know, what's your thought, Chris?
I think it's discontinue it.
So are you our second?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he did.
He seconded, yeah.
So all in favor?
All in favor?
Oh,
Aye.
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 So, Windsor County Sheriff's contract.
I wrote down a bunch of numbers if everybody wants to hear them.
Yes.
I was extremely frustrated with how vague the contract was on the timing, from anywhere from 208 hours a year to 416.
Yeah.
A minimum of 208, and then it could be up to 416. So I figure we're going to get the least. Like, I mean, the contract he sent was only for 208 hours, which is the 4 hours a week, but that's $96 an hour. And that comes to $20,000 a year, and we only budgeted $12,500. So I'm I didn't like how vague it was. I think we could get a little closer than that. He did say he would offer the contract. He didn't say he would offer for the same price. I do remember that from town meeting, but the 4-hour blocks to an 8-hour block is double the time, but I don't know, it was too vague for me. And too expensive.
And too expensive, right?
Yeah.
And I'm happy with the state police myself. I'm okay with calling them.
And he did specifically say that we're paying for travel time, and most of the time it's from Windsor, so one of the 4 hours is travel time there and back, or a majority of an hour, I should say, but I've only ever seen the sheriff in Andover 3 times in the last year. I mean, I don't travel a lot during the day. It's only 4 hours a week. I don't feel that anybody is gonna miss if it's not there, but I mean, that's $7,500 that wasn't budgeted
I agree with both of you. I agree.
And he's completely turned down our offer to just keep the status quo. He said he's not gonna just come and do traffic for 12,000.
No,
Did he change his mind on that?
No, he did. He offered $20,000 annually, the 1,667, which in the end, in the middle of the contract, it said for a minimum of 208 hours a year, up to 416 hours, which that's the vagueness that.
Right.
So we're either paying $96 an hour or $48 an hour. If they get to the maximum amount of time, you would get more, but
But just to clarify, he's not offering us what we've always had.
Correct. He's offering it for $7,500 more than the previous year. The same contract,
but he's
if
also,
it was at the minimum.
But
of
he's
what he
also declining to do kind of traffic patrol like he used to.
I think that's what that is. That's
Yeah.
the whole.
And the way I understood it is that all the calls would be rerouted to the sheriff as opposed to the state police, and I'm not real comfortable with that.
And I think
I'm not
that's
either.
where the vagueness
Right.
went up to the higher amount of hours that they. But
No, I'm just
mean,
not comfortable with that being the situation.
I'm not comfortable with it's
Right.
budgeted at
In the budget,
12,500 and the price is 20,000. I mean, that's not a
And
good way to start
Richard,
a fiscal year.
Right.
I'm with
I
you
agree.
in that. I live on Route 11, and at least once or twice a week, I'll see a state cop. Once or twice a week in Andover on Route 11. I've never seen a sheriff. I have never seen a sheriff.
We met him Saturday morning up on East Hill.
You did?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've seen one.
I've seen them.
And it's only 4 hours a week. It's not a lot, and that's.
No.
right. So it's
And I've literally heard split down from the residents that I've talked to. They like that the sheriff has presence, and others think it's just a waste of money. And I mean,
But we don't have the budget for it.
no.
We don't have the budget for it. I mean, it's pretty clear. Especially when we start looking at our budget in a few minutes.
Yeah.
And just to add in, as you know, I see the invoices come and go and the income we're getting, and I've seen what I would call a sharp decline in the ticket writing that's going on. Last month, it was 1. This month, I think, was 3.
What would it have been a couple years ago in general?
I can pull those out and tell you, but I was
It's,
surprised
you
when
don't
it
need
said
to,
1.
it's fine.
Well, what percentage does the town get of the ticket?
I don't know how the fees are figured. I do know that if he spends time writing anything on Route 11, it all gets put in a pool, and each town that's along Route 11 where they write those tickets gets assigned a percentage, and I don't know if it's based on how many miles of Route 11 you have. So that's a very insignificant amount of money. Like less than $200 a year for the Route 11 tickets.
And do we know for a fact, what has Weston responded to him yet? We don't know, or
I'm not aware.
up to the sheriff?
Yeah, I'm not aware.
Well, what you're saying is, did we get one? Did he send us a contract where 3 or 4 towns are all getting together? That didn't happen.
Yeah,
No.
so presumably Weston did not
No.
move on
Or
that.
Cavendish or wherever else he said.
And it did sound like this contract will not even be offered, and he was gonna have a minimum, which was gonna be higher than that was what he said they were trying to move away from, was the small blocks. They wanted more presence in each town, which came with a bigger fee.
Well, thank you for doing that breakdown per hour.
Yeah.
I just,
Right.
It ranges, actually, the first few invoices I grabbed, most of the tickets were written on Route 11. This one from February 2022, there were 3 tickets written out here and 2 on Route 11 in 1 month's time. Four tickets. Nine tickets.
so like she said, that's a pretty sharp decline from that amount
Right.
to 1 and 3.
8 tickets.
Although it probably never really has been about the number of tickets as much as deterrence, but it's still instructive to see how little deterrence there is now.
Well, there is out here with the new signs. I mean, right? I mean, they have to be, I would say they're helping.
So do we need to respond to him, or we need to say yes or no?
You need to say yes or no, correct?
Yes.
Does anyone want to make a motion as to what we should do?
I would move no. We don't have the money for it, and I don't think it's really doing anything.
I'll second it.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Outdoor consumption permit for Raoul's Inn.
I am gonna, I'm gonna remove myself from this conversation. Family business, so,
We've had a couple of those today.
yeah, I wanted to let you know, just a heads up.
So they're just looking for a license
Liquor
for,
license.
to have, be able to serve drinks out on their veranda? Is that what they're looking to do?
This is simply, honestly, a formality. It's a renewal. She's had it before.
Right,
She
right.
doesn't have any violations according to the database, and it's the annual renewal
Yeah.
that comes before. The state won't move it on to its next step until the select board has formally approved
Well,
and
I
saying
move
it's
that we
okay.
approve it.
I second it.
Those in favor?
Aye.
School choice.
Scott,
That's not me, I'm just a guest.
He came, I asked if he would come put any
Oh,
feedback.
I'm so confused. I'm like, what, wait?
Just have heard from a few residents, some with kids in the school system, some without, if school choice is an option. And this is literally just the very first discussion if the board and or any residents in attendance have any feedback on it. I spoke with Kelly Piola briefly through a text message today because she was unavailable for a call. And if the town would like to move forward, she would like to meet and also attend the next meeting to give all information that she can to help with that process if the town's interested.
The only thing I'll add to that is through the school board talks, there's ideas on how to keep Cavendish open. And one idea that has been thrown around is send an age group of kids to that, either pre-K to 3rd to Cavendish. That would mean Andover kids would have to go all the way to Cavendish with no buses guaranteed.
and we only have one vote on that, which would be you, correct?
That's it.
And how many other votes are there for that decision?
11 total.
There's 11 total, and you're the only Andover, we can only get one vote.
We get one, Baltimore gets one.
Cavendish gets 3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
6 at Chester.
I'm just
Well,
answering a question I
my
already
sense
know.
is that we're not the only satellite town of Chester that this conversation is going in pretty
Mhm.
deep with. So presumably it would, are you allowed to, are school board members allowed to talk to each other?
Yeah, one-on-one, yeah, just like you.
So I have another question about that. What is your feel on that, that is actually gonna be something they can or will choose to put out there to vote, that that's an actual feasible idea? To me, it doesn't sound very feasible.
My
That
answer,
is,
my answer is gonna be absolutely not.
to me, it sounds like a very long day on a bus for little children, on a bus that we maybe don't even have.
You get
And
it?
if we
Correct.
don't, then we have people that work maybe towards Londonderry that have to drive all the way to Cavendish, and that to me doesn't seem right. I'm a proponent for it. You don't have a bus system and you have to drive your kids, why not have a choice of which direction you go, to the right or the left?
I mean, we pay the same taxes as everybody else does for the buses, but we don't get a bus all the time. We're always the one that gets the short end, and Cavendish is too. Cavendish doesn't always get a bus either, but they always have buses
Have
for
one
in
for
town
Lovelock.
Chester.
Is the conversation around the, you know, the chemicals that have been found in the Green Mountain High School building, is that impacting the conversation on the school board with like where students might go?
Not yet, really. We're kind of sitting back waiting for the state to tell us what we're.
Can you tell me a little bit about that, the chemicals?
I really can't, I really don't know enough about it. They had a meeting on it. You could zoom it on,
And was it the
watch
school
on-
board that had the meeting, or is it the school
No, it was
themselves,
just, it was just an informational meeting through the state,
through the state? And
but it's on Okemo Valley.
It's only on Okemo Valley, right? Yeah, it was not.
it's through Green Mountain though.
Correct.
And do you know what type of, do you have any idea, what, if any information you can?
What is the issue?
This is more of a person.
PCBs, it's in the hallway or in the staircases, high tests, and then all the classrooms around it. It could be anything from lead paint, caulking, it could be anything.
Just
So
so,
did someone find something?
No,
and-
the state did testing,
Oh, okay.
and they're actually, in the fall, they're gonna do Chester Andover Elementary School too. They haven't done that one yet because we're putting new air ducts in that school as we speak.
And
Scott, do
then,
you mind if I add a little from, I was at the same meeting, so based on what happened at, are you familiar with Burlington High School?
Yeah.
So they were tested for PCBs, I don't know what brought that about. And because of their levels, the school was shut down, so their levels in the measurements they used were over 6,000. Our most concerning areas at Green Mountain are in the 500s and 600s. And so the state has this board, and they were the people of this panel of experts who came, and they're the ones charged with, okay, what's the action plan? So one of the first things they've done is that all schools in the state are to be tested. If they're older than 1980, then they absolutely have to be, and they made a priority list. And Green Mountain, I mean, this list just started, what, a year, maybe 2 years ago? Green Mountain was pretty high on the priority list because of the age and because there haven't been significant renovations, which might have abated some of the things that eke out PCBs, if you will. So that's why it's been tested already, and both Cavendish and, was it Baltimore? What's the other
I think
elementary?
it was
Oh,
Mount
Ludlow?
Holly.
Oh, Mount Holly. Those two
Thanks.
elementary schools have been tested and they're fine. So what they do is they go in and they do a random sampling. They did it during April vacation. They run the air ducts, heating systems, anything like that as if it were a normal school day. And the way they explain it, they put testing units in various areas and then documented what those readings were. So what they're doing, Todd Paris said beginning Monday, I mean, graduation's Friday night, Monday morning. They've already hired an environmental consultant. They're gonna come in and do more testing in order to pinpoint where it's coming from. And until we kind of know what those results are, the board, they can't necessarily recommend what needs to be done until it's determined where they're actually coming from. There was a list that they put out of where they tested and what those numbers were. So as Scott was saying, the highest concentrations on average are in the whole third floor, the most being in the middle staircase. And then the classrooms, when you all went to Green Mountain, you remember what it looks like. The classrooms that are down next to that stairwell were high. The cafeteria, gymnasium, auditorium, all tested really, really, really low. The state, I think you have to come up with a plan or at least do initial things if that number was 100. If it's 300, you absolutely have to do something. And as we said, there are 8-10 spaces that tested well up over 300.
Yeah, they put the average on the third floor at 323, which is over the immediate action level that they came up with.
So I have, how often do they run these tests? Does anyone know? Have they ran them in the past?
I don't think they have
No,
because
I think it's the
I
first time they've
believe
done
that
it.
because of Burlington High School that all of this came about.
And
They only tested 30% of the school the original time because it's an original test to see if there's any detection of it. Because like Jeanette said, PCBs were illegal in 1979. They outlawed them. So anything built after 1980, they're figuring would have less. So they put them lower on the list. Anything prior to 1980 is guaranteed to get tested as soon as possible. But it's also a lab thing because they tested in April and the results just came back.
so
last
then
week.
my other question is it something that off gases after a while, do they become less if you don't treat them? Or could it have been at higher concentrations at a different time?
Absolutely.
They went over that at the meeting, that the highest concentration times have gone and come and gone, and they should be less as time goes on, but they're still there, so.
So, and is there,
So can
yeah,
I just
sorry.
want to interject something to the board. This is really near and dear to my heart. I know of students that have been contacted about, from Dartmouth to study their cancer they've had because of this.
Wow.
That some of the doctors have asked to. So that's a pretty
It's very
big-
serious.
It is very
Yeah.
serious.
is there, to the extent that this can be mitigated, is there state or federal money to do that? Or is that something the school districts have to, I mean,
So that's one of the things that's being worked on because it's early. The legislature has set aside some money and they're working, one of the things built into, I think they said the current year budget, which has been vetoed, but all of that's still in flux. There's money in there. They pulled money out of the education fund specifically to help schools with the goal being, taxpayers not having to foot this bill. And Senator McCormick and Senator Representative Arison and Heather Chase were all there to talk about, so this is obviously Chester School, so they're in Montpelier advocating for this amount of money so that, again, the burden doesn't fall to the taxpayers, because first it's, the identification and figuring out an action plan, and then it's not just mitigation, but it's like complete removal, and what does that look like?
And just so you know, Kelly Viola did want to go, but she couldn't because of kids. She did call me before the meeting.
Oh, she did, okay,
Yeah,
good.
she would have been there.
I wasn't sure she,
Yeah.
There was people that voiced
I am
similar,
personally more concerned about the students than anything else.
and they did explain like very thoroughly as soon as school closes that they're gonna go about it as fast as they can, with starting with putting in, what were these, carbon filters in each room, and then they would be retest the same room to see if that made any effect. And if it comes to when school starts back up, that Green Mountain is much larger, the word for word was said, much larger, and has room to move kids to another classroom if needed. Well, because it's only a 2-month break. I mean, so, because some areas of the school have been tested and they're fine, but some are in the high level.
And I question how high were the levels.
And that's what's asked at the meeting
well,
also, and there's no
Willis
answer
went to
for
school
that.
there with us. She said, what about those of us who went to high school here? Now we've spent 20 years in our careers here. And
Oh, yeah,
those
right.
of us who went to preschool there when the building was brand new,
Mhm.
yeah,
kids get really stubborn, but he went to school there and now he's a teacher there for how long?
Yeah.
Can you clarify something? I think I know the answer, but if there were a conversation about school choice, this is just something the school board members would vote on. It's not something the
town.
The town.
Voters.
We-
Every
You mean
town.
we would have a popular vote in
It
town?
has
Every
to.
town.
So it's not just a vote by the school board, it would be the townspeople of all the union district.
It
Right.
goes through you
Right.
guys first. I still continue doing what I gotta do to make our school best for our kids as we can, because I'm on the school board for Andover, but you guys gotta figure out what you guys wanna do. If you wanna put it to vote, if you don't wanna put it to vote, I mean, that's the first
So in
step.
other words, yes, the townspeople of Andover have, if we decided that we wanted to put a vote in front of the townspeople of Andover, if they wanted to adopt school choice, then we could do that.
And
But it
that's
would
what
have to
Kelly-
be put on
And
by
that's
all
what
the
we would get
towns.
Kelly involved in to make sure everything goes at
It
the
wouldn't
right
have to be,
exact
other
step
towns could not do
towards that.
that, but Andover could do
And
that.
also, the two best things I've heard is school choice, your tax dollars follow your children wherever they go. And if you're very much a Chester alumni, you can still send your kid to Chester schools. If that,
That's why I'm gonna tell you, I had 3 kids that went to Green Mountain, and I ended up pulling out my last 2. And the education they got there was so subpar. My daughter was at the very top of her class, and we transferred her down to Bellows Falls. And the very classes that she had grabbed, of course, there's no A, B, C's, or D's, but she had all passing with distinctions. The very classes that she got at the top of her class, she had to take over again when she got to Bellows Falls. She was so far behind academically, so far. And so that's why I really encourage, and I know, you know what, when we first moved here, Green Mountain was doing an excellent job, but has gone to a place now that the kids are not getting any education. And also, the nice thing about sending my children somewhere else is they actually had a grading system that colleges would accept. I have a very good friend of mine who's from Vermont. She grew up in the Northeast Kingdom. She's at a college down in New York. And she told, and I've known her for 20 years, and she said, whenever applications came in for kids from Vermont, she always looked at them closer because she was from Vermont. And she said now, if she gets applications that come in, they automatically go to another pile, because she said, why would I spend 20 to 30 minutes trying to figure out their grades when I have 3,000-4,000 applications in front of me? I don't have time to look at Vermont students anymore.
Are you all aware of what that means about the grading system?
yes, I do now. I've learned that.
It's all pass fail.
It's all proficiency, is that the correct word?
So-
Proficiency.
And that actually, I ran into that with my kids.
Yeah, so when I meet with someone, I work with colleges, and when I was there, and when she told me that, she said, I don't even look at them anymore.
It's
That's
interesting.
sad.
That's a
Yeah.
When they used to get priority.
I need a little bit more clarification. Just say hypothetical, Andover, we had a vote, I guess it would probably have to be a vote by ballot, and Andover voted they wanted school choice. That doesn't give us school choice. You'd have to get all the districts in all the towns in our district to all vote and agree to let us out of the union. And I know that, there are some other of the satellite towns who have that conversation. So, I mean, presumably there could be cooperation and something like that. Well, anyway, if Kelly's available to come talk to us, I would love to have her do that.
I will gladly continue conversation with her if the board wants to move forward with it. And
Well, you've got a child in the school system.
Yeah.
What is your?
I absolutely think it would be, being that as small of a town as we are, and with all of the issues going on, it would be a great time to
and you have
move
more
to
of a
school
pulse.
choice.
And it is true about the money following, because like right now, like my daughter at Bellows Falls, all the money doesn't follow. Green Mountain still gets a portion of the money,
Yeah.
and she's not even there.
And the talk about how much it's going to cost to keep some of the schools in our district open with the very small enrollment they're seeing is surplus of $30,000 to $35,000 per kid to keep another school open and to keep. I don't want schools to close, but there's no kids to go to the schools, and that's the tax dollars. The tax dollars don't follow.
It's sad, Burton, it's cheaper to educate a child at Burton than it is public school.
How, do you have figures about how many students, and I don't mean homeschooled because but how many students actually attend school at Green Mountain from Andover? And how many at Chester? Do we even know?
No.
Do you
I
know?
asked
It
every
isn't
year,
that-
every year when I was on that board, I asked Mr. Thornburg for a list of students, and I never got it. Because they would come up with numbers of 40, 48, and I would sit there, and there's not that many kids in this town, but Green Mountain was getting money for that many.
Because they
And
were
I repeatedly
homeschoolers.
asked for that list.
The homeschool money's never followed it.
What's that?
The homeschool money's never followed. It's always Green Mountain gets it,
They do.
or it stays in Montpelier.
But are there like 15 or 20 or like,
No,
like we have
they
no
used to say in
idea?
the 40s every year.
They used to
Really?
give us a count in the town report, and they don't provide us that. If you call
Right, I was
them,
gonna say,
if
it
you
wasn't
call
the
them,
town
it's like
report, yeah.
reinventing the wheel to get them to dig up that number. And because they like to keep it all under one thing, oh
Because
no,
they
this
get
is how
money for all
many kids.
these students.
Well, could we request our school board member to try to,
I can try, but I'll get them all. I mean, homeschool, I don't know who's homeschooled.
No,
even
who's
if we knew
actually
how many kids
attending?
go to
Who's
school
attending, who's
physically?
enrolled? And
How
actually,
many? They won't tell you names, but how many?
and how many are being bused? Is there any?
I think the answer to that question is 0.
3?
Well, but
I
do
also
know that
spoke
there's-
about that after, because it was just an informational meeting, and the whole sending kids to Cavendish, there's no way people can financially afford to bring their child from
People will have to
Andover
quit their
to
jobs.
Cavendish home or to their job and then back there.
My oldest son lives in Cavendish.
It's not feasible.
Back and forth
It's not feasible.
every day.
That idea is not feasible for this entire town or
It's not
anybody
fair
that
for
sends their.
children.
And it's a terrible road. It may be paved, but it's a terrible road too. The Proctorsville Gulf is nasty in the winter. And anybody who lives there will tell you that too. I mean, it's not. As somebody who drives their kid to and from Chester every single day, both ways, that's not feasible.
And we could, if this came up for a vote in Andover, we could say we were interested in school choice just for high school.
It would still, that's all it would be, because we still would go to Chester Andover. So I apologize, it is just for high school.
Why?
Our school board member can probably.
I don't really know the exact.
But it's not-
And you probably could go for both if you wanted to.
Is it because Chester Andover's not set up as a union school district, whereas Green Mountain is, particularly now that we're in the unified school district?
But it could, but that is already talk of that too as another way, because that's it, that whole idea of Cavendish being certain grades would
So-
change those two schools from not being just kids from Chester and Andover. So that's where I don't understand enough to say one way or another, but.
Pushing kids into the
These
Chester
are just
Andover
ideas.
school.
Correct, and this is an idea that's why it says discussion, to see if the
So-
board is in favor of continuing or
What would
wants to
the
do this.
And what would the choice be? We talk about school choice. What
You
does
get
that
3
mean?
choices.
You have 3 choices within what
I don't know
district,
exactly
or how does that work?
I don't know exactly the distance, but
And
Well,
would Kelly-
school
would-
choice commonly it means you can go wherever you want up to a certain amount of money, however much money we would be paying Green Mountain.
No, you have to pick, don't we have, you have to pick.
you have to pay.
I think the town has to pick
You
them.
would have to pick. You
We
would
have
either
to
go to
actually-
the online school, the Vermont's online school, which has now become the largest school district in Vermont.
So it'd be a very
Parents are pulling their
complicated
kids out
ballot.
of school. It's now the largest school system.
It's a long, complicated
Yeah, there's no doubt about
subject,
that.
but
You
Well,
can-
we could, I mean, having Kelly come and talk to us
I would like to learn more.
would be interesting to hear what
I
she has to
gave
say.
you, I don't know, maybe I gave you too, all the paper.
Yeah, we got
Yeah.
that,
so-
yeah.
I would move then, that, because we're not gonna solve this problem
I
tonight.
think we're just
I
continue
would move
discussing it.
that we have Kelly come and talk with us specifically about it,
Definitely.
with you maybe.
Oh, you guys.
Definitely.
Anybody want?
Oh,
You
I'll
guys-
second
yeah,
that.
You guys gotta make a decision, and if it goes to vote, of course, if they, the majority say they want it, then I'm
But we
gonna do what the
can, we
majority
can,
wants.
so we've got a move and a
Then we'll
second to
feed-
have, to
Have
invite
Kelly
her,
come, right.
and it's
To
discuss
invite
it
her.
with us.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I'm going.
Thank you.
See you later.
Road Commissioners report.
Oh, we gotta do the
Gonna talk about
yeah,
this
yeah,
meeting.
attorney fees and the next meeting, right,
Oh,
for
right.
short-term rentals.
Well, just, you got the figure done up on the lawyer?
I printed copies, is it not there? Hold on.
This is the minutes for when we're done.
Yeah, I didn't see.
No, it is
anything about
not, is that what you have?
Oh,
No.
I might have it here.
I don't.
Here we go. Yes, here's the email sent to Jeanette, Robert, and Chris. That's alias Richard.
Robert's a good name.
And their time and cost estimate for 12 to 16 hours at 100 hours, $100 an hour for $1,200 to $1,600.
And
That's
that's to just specifically look at what's been added for the short-term rental definition and rules, and do kind of just an overall legal
Look at it.
review at the whole document. I guess my question is, if, I don't know, does it make sense to keep that separate from what Joe is gonna have an attorney
Yes.
do also?
Don't you think it wants to be
If you have
separate?
two different attorney, well, my
two
worry is if two different attorneys, so they say, yep, this is okay, you put it to the voters,
Right.
they
And then-
say, and I don't know if they're gonna recommend something be changed in the actual regulations, or if they're gonna be looking at it from, this is what your regulations say, so this is what you can or can't do in terms of this permit. So maybe it's two very different things.
But they
Perspective.
are
they-
similar in the sense that they are looking at two zoning regulations. One is added, one is a current.
I think that it would
It's-
be wise of us to have
We just have the same
attorney
people,
looking, the same people looking at
both
both the
issues.
issues.
I think so.
Because, yeah, I don't
What's
see
the
why
one
you
issues?
wouldn't.
Well, we're talking about the issue with Joe and what they're zoning, and then also the short-term rental, because they're all kind of within this.
But
So
was he indicating he wanted to consult a different attorney than the one
No,
that
he
we?
said a town attorney. He didn't
Right.
specifically
Right,
say
so,
anything.
but the zoning issue with the gentleman who wants to do the cannabis grow is really a different issue than
But it's zoning.
short-term rental.
But
It is in the
zoning.
zoning, it's in the zoning regulations
They would
though.
probably look at them individually,
But-
but I think it would be Willis to have the same guy looking at them.
Right.
At
Oh,
the same
yeah, that's
time,
fine.
just as a package, it might be.
Well, not probably at the
More
same
Probably,
efficient.
probably not as a package.
Okay.
Yeah, but
But
the same
same
person
person,
to have the
but-
same
right.
opinion on our zoning regulations. One's added and one is an existing regulation we're
Right, right,
looking
right.
at.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, 'cause I think to see another attorney give a whole
Right,
different
right,
opinion.
right.
Right, and saying we should change this, but the other guy saying, no, you can't change this because, for whatever reasons. I agree. So do we need to make a motion on that we?
Well,
or
Yeah,
are we
wait.
just
so
going
what's
to-
gonna have to happen is,
Another
we have to go
proposal.
back to Abby, and they're gonna have to rethink and really figure out what it is that's being asked for, and then re-propose the
Because now you're
fees.
talking about having the
Because they
two
won't
things
move forward
together.
until the fee structure and
Mhm.
potential total has been accepted.
I mean, I would understand why we would have the same attorney do both things, but I'm not sure why you would have them doing them at the same time, sort of. Combined, you know?
What's the possibility of having them done by the same person but two different?
In other words, if we
Fees.
accept this and have them do the short-term rental thing, look at it, check it out, fix it, it's
And then
done.
it's just done.
It's done,
But,
because,
and so what you're saying is you could accept this
yeah,
and go back to the same and say,
Yeah.
here is our next thing.
and here's our next problem.
And
We would like the same person to
Most,
work on that.
you would assume, and there's just an assumption that their fee schedule would look the same and they could give you like this, a 12 to 6, whatever their
Mhm.
timeline. You would, that's an assumption. I'm not saying that they are gonna
I just
charge
feel
the
like if we
same, but.
connect the short-term rental issue with this new issue about the cannabis
I
grow.
agree.
Right,
I
we
think
don't wanna
it's-
connect it, but with the same person
Person,
looking
yeah,
at it,
the same
I think it's a
person.
good
But
idea.
I think the short-term rental thing, I move that we accept this and we let them get rolling on it so that we can have something in our hand, look at it and then have it, let's do this.
And then what's the likeliness, do you believe, that we would have the same people looking at the?
It depends, so these are attorneys through the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, and you put in a request and then they assign staff based on their background. So,
And that's the other thing, you see,
Well,
I think the background
that
of somebody
makes it
dealing with
right.
cannabis is gonna be very different than the background of somebody dealing with short-term rentals.
That's a good point.
Lawyers, I'm saying.
Right, but
Different.
at least go with VLCC, don't get the same outfit.
Yeah, right, same outfit, but yeah.
I'll second Melissa's motion to accept the proposal.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You made a good point there about
Thank you, Bill.
expertise.
And-
One is not necessarily the expertise.
We also already said we were gonna reach out on, because we accepted
Right.
Joe's proposal, or,
Right,
Asked for,
we
so-
already said that was good,
Yep.
so.
Right,
so that is, and now it's just about next meeting.
yeah, I'm not gonna be here for the next meeting. I'm gonna be out of town, so we gotta set pay scale for the end of the month.
When is the next meeting? What day supposedly?
It's supposed to be Monday, the 26th, and that would be the meeting where you all need to have an executive session and set employee pay rates for fiscal year 23-24. And
You available
I'm not
any
comfortable
other-
with Chris not being part
I
of that
was gonna say,
conversation.
can we,
any other day that
Yeah,
week?
what would be a good day to switch it to?
I
What would
could
be?
do it Wednesday probably, but Thursday
Oh,
would be
it's fine
better.
with me. I can do it any night.
Wednesday, the 28th,
Or 29th would be better.
Friday night?
Thursday.
Thursday.
The 29th.
Thursday, the 29th.
I make a motion to move the next meeting to June 29th at 6:30.
It's a Thursday.
I second that.
Yeah, I'll go with that. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Road Commissioners report, they don't have a whole lot to report on. We got the bill on the grader. You saw that,
$7 million?
50,000,
50.
50,000.
How much is a new grader?
300 and something.
300 and something and a year wait probably or more.
Yeah,
But we can't predict if we're gonna have that every year, right? I mean, if we knew that was gonna happen,
No, we can't.
we can't predict.
no,
We can't afford a
Wow,
new
that's a
grader right
lot.
now.
I believe it is something we should keep in mind, as that's probably the next big piece of equipment that has, it's tough.
either Josh's truck.
Exactly.
too.
Say
That's-
Josh's truck is,
It's,
are hemorrhaging them on a regular basis.
those are the two, and that's the tough thing with when we are. So that's, are we gonna use the equipment fund for that?
Yeah, have to be capitalized. If what you do if you're in business, a rebuild of that magnitude. It's capital equipment again. No, we don't
And
depreciate.
that will take, how much do we have in there?
Capital equipment? Just at the moment, we have $140,000 in the capital equipment fund,
And it's gonna get the,
the 62.
but that's already down to 12 if we factor in the grader.
The loader?
Or no, the grader bill has been paid out of that already,
Oh, no, it has
No.
not.
but the
Oh,
loader,
I see what you're saying, you're
Correct.
adding up the loader and the grader bill, yes.
yeah,
But at the beginning of the fiscal year, which is in a month, we'll be adding whatever we budgeted,
It's 60.
62. Is it
either 62 or 65.
Maybe it's 60.
Once I find it.
Right page.
65.
So 10 and 65 puts us at 75.
Grader. Or the loader, I keep, sorry.
Yeah.
Total highway equipment repairs and maintenance,
163 was
year
that?
to date,
What's that?
77,000.
163 was that?
The loader?
That'd
I think so, that's what I'm saying is we're,
It's not gonna be in there. It won't show up in there because so the budget stuff all ties to the general fund bank account. The capital equipment fund, which we pay for huge things like this out of, is a whole separate bank account that doesn't show up on there. It has its own income and expense lines because it all operates out of that one bank account. That's how all those separate bank funds, just like the highway bridge fund, when we pay for big
Right.
bridge projects, if you won't see it there, you would only see it if you go through a detail of the bank account.
But what we're proposing right now is to take the 50 out of the capital equipment.
It's the only place it can come
It's the
from
only
because the
place it can come
budget's.
from. And then we have, going back into it, did you say 75?
I think 65 is what's on the budget for the new fiscal year, Richard, you said 65?
Yeah, so we'd add that, but we'd also have to deduct the
140
50.
minus 80 minus 50 is 130 at 10,065, so theoretically, the bank balance would, the capital equipment fund balance in August would be $75,000. End of August.
Well, we don't really have a choice, so.
So I was trying to find the exact number, my apologies, I don't have the exact number on the loader written down in this book, but that's where I was trying to find out, because that's coming out when that gets delivered.
When was that? That was August-ish.
I think
Yeah,
so.
I think it was proposed 10 months from when it was ordered, and that, I know I flipped through it. But I guess when the fiscal year starts and that bill for the grader gets paid, we can crunch those numbers after the loader gets deducted.
The grader's running fine.
That's
Is it?
great, that is
Working well?
great to hear.
That's good,
That is-
alright.
It
So
is-
do we
it is
need to
fixed.
make a motion to take that money out of the capital equipment fund, or we don't need
Well,
to just?
That's up to you,
do that?
Chris.
You could.
I was gonna make the motion if we need to make a
Go
motion,
ahead.
because we have no choice.
Yeah.
So, but if we don't need to make one, then that's where it's coming from.
So the other thing is starting to mow roadsides.
Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah. We'll have to have a discussion on what funds for paving the stretch above the campground, when we're gonna do that. So we need to find out when we get a grant, some grant money.
But you've
That's not
submitted
right.
all the paperwork for the grant, correct? It's all in there.
We've been approved for the
It's
grant,
been approved, so.
Yeah,
so it's
the
kind of
original-
somewhat backwards.
Wait
Now we just need somebody to actually send in a bid to do the work.
We've reached out to people, or are we just putting it out to bid? Or
It's
we
put out
reached
to
to
bid.
companies?
I don't know, did Charlie reach out to anybody specific?
I don't think so. And they might have told Golden about it when he came down to do the inspection.
Oh, yeah. I think he said he didn't have time. But I don't know how far out he,
You did have one interested party, which was the name of that, Springfield,
I can't remember, was last name Lewis, is that what, I didn't recognize it.
Luco,
Oh, okay.
Luco in Springfield. Done a bunch of work up towards Sharon Way. Okay, so on to year-to-date budget update.
I don't know if the minutes weren't right, but I found the loader discussion and it says 167. Is that what we remember?
Yeah, it was a lot,
It was 163 or 167.
and that includes the trade-in of the old one too.
Yeah. I think you're right, it was 167, and John Deere was 176.
Yeah, and they preferred that one, that Charlie said they preferred the Cat anyways over the
Yeah.
John Deere, right? So that worked out well that it was the. Did you say 167?
Yes.
not necessarily to this year, but I've mentioned it before, but I think it would be great for the board to look into something with the insulation in the town garage, because that's $6,000 over budget this year on the heat, and we only budgeted 5,000 for next year. And fuel is not set to, if everything goes through with fuel, it's still gonna be expensive, and I don't know if it's anything with the ARPA funds could be used or any of that, but I'm just saying, I think with looking at that number, I understand they open the doors and let a lot of heat out, but I think the building itself has a lot of heat loss.
So that will be, there are a couple of grants.
Yeah.
So the first thing is we have to get an ADA compliance test done, which there's a grant to pay for, to then be in the pool for this other grant, which is, and I'm already working with the Regional Planning Commission about that, and she said we are like the textbook of the kind of municipality that those grants are for.
Yeah.
Is, you know, ones that couldn't normally have in their day-to-day budgets fixing older buildings like all of these. So definitely on the radar, and I will
That's awesome,
follow
thank you.
up with her and see.
It's just, that's the one that sticks out to me with the numbers, because it's 3 times what was budgeted, the number that came in. And I know when they sat with the budget for that year, fuel wasn't what it was, but.
Just so we are all aware of, what is an ADA test?
For the American with Disabilities Act compliance. So they'll go through and check for compliance in all the buildings.
Handicap access.
So that we can,
So we would then have to spend money to fix all of those to then be eligible for a grant to address energy issues.
and if we were to be bound with an ADA test that we needed to upgrade a bunch of systems in our, every building, would it then be something we have to do on a timeline, or could we say, this is gonna cost too much for the town and we're not going to do that? So are we going to put ourselves in a position where we have to build a new?
I believe that you do it and then you have to make the changes if you want to be eligible for the grant. So the other grant to do the energy stuff, we can exclude buildings. So for example, if it's found that there is no way we can retrofit this building, which if you think about, there's nothing ADA compliant here. Then this building could be excluded from what we apply for. The town hall, I have no real concerns, because they actually, when they built the addition on the back, they did most of that. Really the biggest glaring thing is the lip that's this high that goes from the ramp up into the building itself. The bathrooms, we have a wheelchair accessible bathroom in there and things are at the right height. So, and I think all the doorways are the width they're supposed to be. And I don't know what would be found with the garage.
And if there was something found with the garage, would we have to fix it even if we didn't want the grant? Would it, that's my question, because I would hate to
don't believe so. I think the
shoot
only
ourselves.
reason they're doing it is to make you eligible for the grant. But I can ask the
Can we
Regional
find out for
Planning
sure?
Commission somehow without, again, we're trying to avoid raising lots of red flags.
Right, and my concern is that we don't want to be put in a position where we have to build a new garage, a new town garage, because the town can't afford that. Or that's my opinion.
Yeah, and most ADA stuff is, like Jeanette said, doorways, bathrooms, and there's plenty of big doors in the town garage to get
That's
in,
what I was
to get in
thinking.
and out. And it, I mean, I know I've personally put in, and it's the, like you said, it's, so you can go in with a wheelchair and turn it around in the bathroom, and
It's
it's
also
the
the
doors.
kind of doorknobs
Correct.
and switches.
Fixtures and stuff
Yep.
like that, but it's usually centrally about doorways,
Doors and
bathrooms. And if you're on a second floor, but none of our buildings are, so that's.
Is that something we can find out, though?
Yeah.
Yep.
Move on to draft vote. proposal in the zoning regulations?
That was just about getting,
Lawyer,
Yeah.
approving the attorney
Okay,
fee.
I was gonna say we already.
pretty well did that.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, it's on the regular agenda, but there's nothing to report other than they wanna know if we are willing to pay that much money to have them look at it and see if it's
Right,
legal. Or what recommendations they would make otherwise.
Financial orders. So these, that's one. Minutes.
Oh, I heard that Blue Cross Blue Shield is like going way, way up again after we switched, but I guess we'll find out.
Oh, are they?
but they're what, they're going away?
They apparently
Oh, the
they've got.
state board approved some huge
Yeah, it's a
increase.
huge increase in Blue Cross Blue Shield after we switched, but I guess we'll get to that in good time.
Good thing is we can always switch back,
There you go.
if there's any price advantage to doing so.
Maybe you already signed that,
Any correspondence for the finish that up?
There is no correspondence.
Yeah.
That's right. If you stand on your head, we'll give you some water. It's not the old.
Chris, do you wanna sign a couple more notes while you're here?
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second it.
In favor?
I
Thank you.